Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Broken by Concept. We've got Nathan, we've got Curtis. 103. We're episode 103 today.
That's right, 103.
Okay.
I'm ready to talk about some League of Legends, Curtis.
Ready?
Throw it at me. I love League of Legends.
Let's start this episode off with let's make it spicy. Today's going to be spicy, okay? Let's make it, exciting, high energy, high intensity, okay? So first thing.
Let's go.
Win con assessment. I get pretty angry about this. And, I think I do a pretty good job of hiding my frustration during my MLA coaching. I think we kind of, you let loose from I mean, I don't listen to this, but from what you've told me, you kind of let loose to kind of set an example.
I will highlight a basic mistake and repeat it. And they're like, yes, Nathan, I get the message. Are you sure?
Yeah.
You sure? You sure about this death? You're not going to happen again? It's not going to happen again?
Right. I think I need to take maybe your approach a little bit more. I'm going to make an extended video on this at some point, but I really need to get this off my chest. So, if you're ahead as a mid laner and you're, 3-0, you're 4-0, whatever it might be, you are, a key carry on this team. You might not be the only carry. You might not be playing like a 1v9 type of Akali champ, whatever, but you're a key carry. You're a secondary carry. It doesn't matter if you're a Vex. It doesn't matter if you're it doesn't even matter what champion. If you're 4-0 as a mid laner, you got to step up.
It's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility. You got to step up.
I don't care how bad your opposing opponent is, how bad they play, because you feel like you deserve to win the game because you've played better. You're 4-0. The whole game's on you.
The game's on you. Whether or not, whether you want it to be on you, it is on you. Like, I'm sick of doing reviews where someone's 4-0, 3-0, whatever, and there's not a single call being made. There's not a single call. There's no calling for objectives. There's no fixing lane assignments. There's no saying, okay, Baron's up. Do we want to play for Baron? Do you want Hover on top side? Do you want to... We can do anything. You can do whatever you want. You can literally start Baron. You can bait Baron. You can shove out mid siege. You can go to side lane, get Hover from your jungler. You can do whatever the hell you want to do. I don't even give a shit how bad your call is, how bad your decision is.
You just want people to do something.
I want people to just do something.
Because
like,
they just sit
up.
back. They just sit back and just relax and like, okay, I'm just going to race. I'm going to go to this wave. And then they think it's like, I'm going to clear the wave and then I'm going to think about what I'm going to do after.
Yeah, then I'm going to think about what I'm going to do.
When you're playing, you're thinking, I already know. I'm pushing. I'm going to go here. Quick, speed, focus. Here we go.
I know that if I go to a side lane, I go to a wave and my team's on the other side of the map, and I haven't said a single thing, it's just a flip at that point.
That's right. Someone's going to die.
Either someone's going to engage without me and they're going to start a fight, or my team's going to run around like headless chickens and someone's going to get caught and then I have to compensate for that and then it's just going to turn into a shit show. Then you've lost control.
It
can just be like that. You can just
You lose control of games very quickly. Once one person dies, one person gets caught, because then the way that it works is one person gets caught, then they get some control, some area, and then the next person in your team gets caught and then someone has a bad reset. Then maybe you kill two of them, but then the game's just the flow of the game is completely ruined.
And I just say Chino, right? Chino, he plays on EUNE. He's a master tier player, Vel'Koz player. Dude, this guy has amazing champ mastery. Like his Q accuracy is out of this world.
Vel'Koz with Q accuracy is one of the scariest things in the history of the game.
Like he's a beautiful skirmishing, beautiful champ mastery. He ticks all these boxes.
Love it.
We get into mid game, he's 4-0. And just walking out of base, I'm like, Baron's up, you're 4-0, you're going to get outscaled. They have a Jax and a Cassidy, and you have like triple AP on your team. What do you, they're building Wit's End, they're starting to build all these MR items. You're going to lose if you don't try to get something done. And I said, what do you want to do here? He's like, I think Akali's pushing bots. I guess maybe go bot. And then like Akali, he's playing to his Akali on bot side away from Baron. And then like they run, like they've got this comp that is terrible at running into them. And then they just run through like all these AP Shaco boxes. And then they just basically get aced. And then they lose the game off that. And I'm like, dude, I don't care what decision you make. You could siege mid, you can start Baron, you can bait Baron, you can go top. If you told me you genuinely felt like sieging bot tier 2 for whatever reason was the right play.
That was the intention.
If that was the intention, great, thumbs up. We can look at that and feel like, why the hell did you think that was the right play? But there is nothing.
No.
It's like we're just going with the flow. And I think people, there's a few excuses people have, right? Number one, I don't see my favorite streamer do it, so why should I do it? Or there's people higher elo than me in the MLA that don't do it, so why should I do it? Or people don't listen to me anyway, so what's the point? That's bullshit. Like if you call something a minute before, when people are actually resetting at a good time, people are gonna listen. They're praying someone takes control.
Yeah, my observation is in the mid game, people are so lost that they are begging for any sort of direction. Any ping, they're like, okay, yep, that's cool.
Yep. As long as they're not doing something else already.
That's right.
As long as they're like, as you're doing it when you're off a reset, you're coming up. Take control. And I want to contrast this with another client I had, Spirit Kunai. He's in, I believe he was Plat 1 player. This guy took control. Like he made call after call, told people to reset, wants to stack dragons, and he lost this game, right? But he put up a valiant effort.
I love that. There's so
and
much
the amount of learning
that
guy got, like it's like he's putting his heart and soul into the game.
That's high intensity gameplay.
Like frick, like this guy's putting in effort. He's getting results, and he's gonna get better. Great, thumbs up. That's what you want to be, man. And like it's just
the other thing is also when you're behind, right? So let's say I've had a pretty bad game as like a jungler, right? And I do have like a strong member of my team that, let's say I didn't even play around and they just did some good stuff, right? Like I can't do much with my champion. It's up to, I need that person to take control.
Has to say something.
So like let's say I always visualize, let's say that Vel'Koz, right?
Yeah.
And let's say he's 4-0 and the AD carry is like, let's say there's like 0-1, 3 with like 8 CS a minute, or 7 CS a minute. He's pretty behind. He can't do anything.
He can't do anything.
So someone else has to take control.
Someone else has to take control. Yeah.
You know?
The more ahead you are, the more control you got to take.
That's right.
Period.
Correct. And then people always get upset when they say the team sucks. They're all throwing. They're all dying. You're the one. That's
your fault.
It's your fault.
You didn't take responsibility.
Absolutely.
So bit of a vent, but just come on, guys, get excited, take control, have a crack. Is what we mean by have a crack. Come out of that game thinking, okay, I tried my best. And if I lose, I lose, but, do something. Okay? Do something.
Love that message.
So this was an interesting one, Nathan. This was from Raven, Raven of Death in the MLA, pointing this one out. So there was an interesting statement by Nemesis.
Oh.
And, Nemesis has a very different take on the game in terms of mid lane. Like, we have a different philosophy. And, he has great micro. He has a very unique way of playing the game.
Good champ master on a couple of champs.
He does. And basically, he's been playing on this one account in Korea for, like, quite a long time, right? So if I go to this account, it was around 500 LP Grandmaster, and he fluctuates. I always look at his account. It's not even that high. He's never really been that high. I mean, maybe he's peaked every now and then, but most of the time he's like between 500 to 800 LP, right? And he plays, a lot of Kale. He's got a shit ton of Viagar. He's got literally 1,200 games on this account. A lot of games played, a lot of different champions. He's got like 300 games of Viagar, then 100 games of Kale, 100 games of Yasuo, 80 games of Tryndamere, 70 of Corki. The list goes on. 70 games of Victor, 50 games of Zillion, like a shit ton of champions. Very little champ mastery, right? And then he decided to make a new account, right? He made this new account. Guess what the name was called? Small Champ Pool, right?
Interesting.
Small champ pool. He has a way smaller champ pool
this
here.
This is the BBC mantra. I love this.
He's got Viagar as his main play.
Yeah.
And then Yone, and then he has a bit of Yasuo Aura. So max 4 champs, basically. He's only got 4 champs that he's playing. And these are champs that obviously he's got a lot of champ mastery on, right? Now, it's interesting. He was saying how he says the point that he was trying to make was my other account was just done. My other account was a dead account.
Plus 13, minus 20.
Yeah, he says it was just a dead account. Like I need to make a new account. He believed that it was like doomed. It was like a doomed account,
Negative
right?
win rate.
And it's so interesting because, right, this is an example of someone who literally, this has nothing to do with the account. All this is that one account, you've stopped playing your bullshit scaling Kale pick, right? Which was never going to work in Korean solo queue anyway. So he stopped playing Kale and he's playing with a small champ pool. This has nothing to do, because this other account, is like 500 LP higher. So this other account that he has like a small champ pool is like 1K LP and the other one is only 500 LP. And the narrative that he's pushing is like this account was doomed. You got to start a new account to get high elo. But like, it's not, it's two completely differing like two different players essentially. One has played, 17 different champions and played Kale, which is his scaling bullshit pick that he plays. The other one has stopped playing Kale altogether, only plays 4 champions, and he's got that all new sexy account with a fixed MMR, and he's all good, and he's all happy chappy. Now, what's super interesting, someone was watching his stream a few days ago. He was saying that he's got stuck in all these narratives and lost focus. The gameplay was low quality overall, and he seems to have fixed his mental and his deaths on this new account. But I think it's starting to already change again. He's going back to his old habits and he's starting to lose again. He's saying, maybe we're going to see a third account. Now, I want to call, people say the whole doomed account shit, I'm sick of this because you can't compare this account that's 500 LP to this one that's stuck at 500, 600 LP. His mental's completely refreshed, right? He's playing with a different champ pool, small champ pool, and he stopped, it's just like a fresh start. Where is this what's the bet that his LP in 2 months from now is going to be basically identical? What's the bet? If he sticks to the same small champ pool, yes, he might get higher. But if he did what he did before, played the Kale, played the large champ pool, the LP is still going to be the same. You know what I mean?
I don't care so much about the LP. I care more about the gameplay, the decision making. So the way that I view when people start a fresh account, right? It's sort of like, when let's say you've had a week, right? And like, let's say your apartment's like a bit messy and stuff like that. And then on the weekend, you're like, okay, I'm finally going to clean it up.
Yep.
I'm going to start waking up early. I'm going to change like all these lifestyle habits. Like this week, screw this week. It was a bad week.
Yep.
Next week, I'm going to do what I want. I want to be the person I want to be, right?
Yep.
People, and you have a fresh mindset, you're all excited, right? You clean, your environment's clean, everything's all good. You wake up early, even for the first couple of days.
Yep.
And then slowly we get back into the old habits.
Yeah, right.
Very quickly. That's the exact same thing.
It's the same thing that's going on, right?
So yeah, maybe you've made some sort of changes. And again, he's got the fresh mindset. Yeah. But at the end of the day, he just goes back to the same sort of
I just feel like this is such a dangerous narrative because it's like, it's incentivizing people to make a new account, but it has nothing to do with MMR. It has nothing to do with like, a Riot doomed account. It has nothing to do with a doomed account, dude. You've literally played a shit ton of champions on this account. You played different champions on this other account. You got a small champ pool. And what I love about this is because it's exposing the people that, quote unquote, the community think are talented and special, that can do whatever they want and climb. And no, this guy was stuck. This is someone that people look up to and view as like a really good mechanical player. People think he's amazing. Dude, he was stuck. He ruined his account because he didn't follow. He had a large champ pool, played a bunch of shit, meta hop, whatever he wanted to do, played champs that weren't suited for high elo, didn't adapt his style to Korean solo queue, and then tilt queued and complained and all this shit. And then look at him. And then what's his default response? Make a new account. Now, it'll be super interesting to see if he sticks with his small account mantra and owns up to it. But what's the bet? He's gonna relapse. So that's what'll be interesting. We'll keep an eye on it. But I think this is a really important point to kind of touch on because talent doesn't get you everywhere, right? Like this is the first time I think a major content creator or someone that we view or people view as a really, really good player getting exposed in a way for not having a good quality process and not following some things that we've actually said, which I think is really interesting. And I just hate this whole narrative of the doomed account. I think it's just bullshit. It's a bullshit narrative.
You can fix any account. It's just about decision making.
If he just stopped playing KO on that account and started playing like in shorter periods of time and a smaller champ pool, he could fix that account 100%.
100%. I've fixed so many of my accounts before, and it's just such a bad. Yeah, the moment you get into the account MMR mindset, you're pretty much there's no more focus on improvement anymore. Yeah. It's literally just.
And because he's such a big content creator as well, Nathan, and imagine that narrative that's pushing on everyone else.
All his viewers,
all his viewers, got to make a new account, guys. You got to make a new account.
I mean, you're completely fucked. There's no. I've never seen someone successfully, over the long term, be successful with that mindset of keep switching accounts. Ever. Never seen it. Literally never seen it. You can get short term bursts, but you go back into old habits. Thing.
So that's what I'm interested in. Is he going to stick to this small champ pool, or is he going to believe that? Because there's two narratives going on here. It was his champ pool, or it was the account, right? So we'll see which one is it going to be. Is it going to be which one's going to override? Hopefully he pushes the small champ pool narrative, right? That would be amazing.
That's great.
That'd be great. That's great. That's a positive. Well, we see what he does though. So I think it's good to keep note of that. And let's see, right? We'll keep tabs on that.
The other thing to note, the way that I view in terms of streamers is I don't care what anyone says, how many times you play, you cannot play at your best streaming.
No.
Nemesis is literally a worse player because he streams. I'm sure he knows that.
Yeah, he knows that. He's probably doing it for, obviously, he's a career, right?
Yeah,
He makes money
it's
off it.
different, right? So that's the other thing as well, you know, and you know, there's lots of mental tax. I remember, I think I was listening to I think it was like one of the Double List podcasts, which was saying in terms of like him and his Twitch chat when he plays, and like he just gets so annoyed, he'll like play, like makes a basic mistake, right? And then like his Twitch chat calls it out, right? He knows they're right, but it's just like think about the fact that you have to go through that mental process. It's just it fucks you so much.
You mean the mental process of seeing someone else?
People like seeing the mistake that you're making. You know that they're bad mistakes. Your Twitch chat's actually right, but it's like I don't want to acknowledge it. You know what I mean? No. It's hard, dude. I could never do it.
No, I can't do it
I have mad respect for people like Nemesis and Tyler One and stuff. They just play like 15, 16 games a day.
Touching on that, Tyler One. I mean, I didn't plan on talking about this today, but then you brought him up. So I think he has finished his career.
He's back in NA.
Has he finished it?
Yeah, he packed it in.
So he is an interesting one, right? So he came in, he wanted to do the whole fill to challenger thing.
Yeah.
He ended up I think he did a lot of fill, and then he got support a shit ton, I think. And so I think he stopped putting fill. I think sometimes he was like picking other roles because I think he got too much support, I believe. But he got I think he peaked 300 LP? Is that what he peaked roughly?
Yeah.
300 LP?
Yeah.
And then basically sat at the bottom of Master. Now we got to remember he did get target inted. Apparently there was a lot of target inters, people like betting on his games and shit. And there was like a lot of dodgy stuff going on.
Yep.
But I mean, I think really the thing that hurt him was the insane amount of games he was playing.
Yeah, you can't do it. You can't. It's not possible.
You know, and I think that in a world in which he was doing it properly, like off stream, properly like reviewing with a better lifestyle, with less pressure, there's no doubt that I think he would eventually get challenger in Korea. I think it would take time. It would take a long time, but I think his personality, like he wouldn't give up, right?
He would figure out a way.
Yeah, he would figure out a way. Like he's a very stubborn. He's stubborn in a way, isn't he? He's going to find a way no matter what. I don't know if he would have done it through mid, but I think he would do it through some other roles. I think he would do it through AD carry. He could do it through AD carry, and I think he'd do it through support. Maybe jungle. I don't know. Do you know much about how good he is at jungle?
No.
I know he played a bit of Ivan.
He's just an Ivan player. You're not going to be able to get to challenge with Ivan in Korea. Not possible.
So, like, I mean, I respect that he had a crack, right? He had a crack. He did the whole thing, but that process, right, it really caps you out, man. It really caps you out. So the people saying, oh yeah, Tyler One couldn't do it. I mean, I don't think we really saw if he could or couldn't do it. I mean, the process didn't really allow him to show what he could or couldn't do. In my
Korea's
opinion.
also, you could definitely tell a huge culture shock in terms, especially you're Western, you're really, really Western.
Yeah.
Which like Tyler One's like, he's an American. You know what I mean? Going to
his
Korea.
His was like screwed as well, apparently.
Yeah,
He couldn't find food that he wanted.
We've done it how many
brutal.
times? It's brutal. Like we think that, you know, being there a month from experience.
A month is just max.
Yeah.
I don't know how Midbeast has been over there for that long, to be honest with you. Midbeast has been there for ages. I don't know how the hell he's doing that.
He just loves Korean culture, you know.
Yeah. Nathan, we'll talk about Van.
Okay, we talked about Van the other episode.
Last
one
episode.
Of your students.
And we'll talk about how Van was, she was struggling in gold, right? And I was basically saying, come on, you just got to keep at it. I believe in you type thing.
You identified she had pretty big confidence issues.
She had big confidence issues. And she got plat.
Amazing.
So, I mean, I'm so unbelievably proud of her. She put in the work. She stuck to the process. She was bloody stubborn, right? Like she kept rocking up, doing it. I see her always doing reviews with Tim, one of the other coaches in the MLA. She's put in the work, and she actually took the time to write some of her learnings and her findings and things that we can share on the BBC.
Love her. I love sharing people's success stories.
She said there were many things that contributed to her climb. She can't really pinpoint one thing, but these are a few things that stood out in hindsight. Number one, understanding exactly why she should be grouping or splitting. This was a concept that didn't really make sense to her before, just like learning a new language or a new skill. You might understand it on a surface level, but not how to connect that with the goal. Identifying phases in a game where I need to actively pressure versus farm phases, including factors like game state and champ. So this was something that she just didn't click. Like, when should I be grouping and when should I be splitting? And I think that's something that incrementally, like over time, just through bulk
It's
reviews,
a feel thing.
bulk games, things started to click over time. She's like, oh, okay, I get it. This is where I should be focusing my farm. Nothing's happening. It's like a very slow part of the game. This is a part of the game where I need to be doing something. I need to be with the team
Based on like what's happened in the last 5 minutes, like this constant fighting and stuff, I need to be more so, or the enemy team's got a hard engage comp specifically.
That's right.
Versus the enemy team's got like a Xerath, Ezreal, Yuumi. Like, I don't really need to be grouping. I should be, you know what I mean?
And that's something I think the specifics have added up over time, I think.
You have to be very specific in those situations. I've used that word so many times actually in this week's review. I said, I've just sort of just showing people is like, this is why we have to get specific in this situation, because you can't have general things are good to apply in League, but it's the first step. You've got to get specific because you can't apply these general rules to situations. It's just not possible.
A lot of my observations in my coaching sessions are like, I'll talk about general concepts and then I'm like, but these are the specifics that kind of give it more color. It's like, okay. And a lot of the time I can't actually identify if the person is struggling with the overarching concept or the specifics. And what I mean by that is, if someone dies to a gank as a mid laner, I can't tell if that is like an overall, like he genuinely has a problem with like thinking about the jungler, or is this specifically to do with this jungler? Like, he didn't respect
that champion,
like the gap closer of this champion.
Threat.
So like a lot of the time I cover both. I'm like, okay, I'll ask questions about, were you thinking about the jungler, whatever. And then if they say yes, okay, this might be a Jarvan specific problem or a Rek'Sai specific. And I've had that all the time. Sessions, sometimes the takeaway is like, now you know how much threat range Rek'Sai has onto you. Like, I had a review the other day where it was like, someone didn't respect the existing Rek'Sai tunnels, and now Rek'Sai can do the double tunnel, and then he zoomed halfway across the lane and killed him, and I'm like, now that's it. That's the learning in that situation.
I hope that person watched my Rek'Sai guide.
Yeah, I did. I told them to watch a Rek'Sai guide. Yeah. I've been telling a lot of people to watch a Rek'Sai guide actually, because
I put so much work into that, guys. You better be watching that Rek'Sai guide.
Yeah, it's really good. Second thing, viewing League like a bit of a strategy game where my teammates are my units who can sometimes do weird stuff, all with their unique patterns, but it is my responsibility to move the pieces on the board to the best of my ability, making decisions, pinging off fights, objectives, regardless. Compensation for me, and still is one of the biggest like raid bosses. It's really difficult for her.
It's a huge challenge. That's the confidence thing. The compensation is a huge.
It's a huge confidence. 100%.
If you're really confident with your champ mastery, you just know which is a good battle fight. You just let them die, and you're confident you can carry the game in later stages of the game.
And then she said, map awareness and information about game states is crucial. Game states. What's happening right now? Soaking in as much information as possible. I like that though. Like, it's her responsibility.
Did you have to work on like F key usage? Like, do you talk about F keys much, or do you just what's your thing on how do you gather information?
Funnily enough, this is an interesting one. I've actually gone back. This is something I've gone backwards on.
Okay.
So I learned this from 610. So 610, I remember I was in a session. So sometimes if 610 has been sick recently, hasn't been coming to sessions, but there was times where he would come in and he would like give advice to people. And I love 610's view because he doesn't come from a coaching background. He just says it as it is.
A pure player.
A pure player. Yeah. Like, this is what I would think.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a session and I was kind of just watching this game. I can't remember who it was or what the situation was. And 610 said, stop panning your camera. And at first, my initial response was, why is he saying that? Like, okay, let's just see where this goes, right? And 610's like, dude, you're playing like Orianna. You're not roaming top. Stop. Just focus on your lane.
Point. Yeah.
And like, it's actually a good point. As a mid laner, a lot of the time you need to focus as much of your mental stack on just doing your job in the lane. It's not your responsibility to know what's happening in top lane a lot of the time. Now, yes, this depends on the champ you're playing. It depends on the situation. But like, for the majority of the early lane, who gives a shit if you're not Faker? You can't camera pan and with F key,
and still play the lane phase
perfectly.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, you're missing skill shots because you're busy about thinking what's happening bot. Yeah. So just focus on your lane first. Yeah. We can get to that shit later. And that really stuck with me. And I actually say the other thing. I say the other way around. I say stop panning on camera. Focus on your lane. Focus on your wave management. Focus on hitting your skill shots. And then we'll get to the other stuff later on. So yes,
That's more of an early game thing, though, right?
It's an early game.
Wasn't Van's thing more about mid game collection?
But I don't really
collection?
talk about F-King because you should only pan when you need to pan. Like, I think as a jungler, you need to be a lot more aware of what's happening everywhere.
You need to know.
Whereas,
everything.
like, as a mid laner, you don't need to know all the time. It's like, okay, this is my winning side, this is my losing side. As long as I'm panning every now and then when I have prior to, then I can, that's all you need to do. Like, what I generally say is, okay, we know that's the side we want to influence. Let's shove. And then when we shove, we can pan and hover and decide along the way, then like come back mid. Like there's a multiple step process. You don't need to be panning 24/7 because you're probably not going to ditch the mid wave anyway. It's just not something I focus on.
Yep.
It's a way a high elo thing. I would say it's a higher elo concept.
So why was Van? So Van, was she not collecting the information before?
She just wasn't. I believe with Van, it was more. Change? She wasn't using LOL stage to just get an overarching view of the game. Like what's going on? Who's strong? Who's weak?
She wasn't asking that question.
Who threatens me? That sort of thing. You know. Yeah. So that's.
So she would have to like ask those questions to then look for the information to.
Well, I think what it was over time, Nathan, is that she didn't know how that information would influence her decisions.
Got it.
And I think, and this is the way I try to teach Nathan, where I try to teach like. Information is just information unless you know how it's going to impact your play. Yeah. Like once you understand the importance of looking at it, then of course you're going to look at it. Like if you want to translate your lead on Twist of Fate, well, no shit, you're going to look at what's happening in the side lane. It's a no-brainer, right? That's like kind of the narrative I try to push.
Yep, that makes sense.
And then the third one, he was really understanding that the decision of thinking and doing the right thing matters, not the result, even when it's really tricky sometimes to fully detach from the result. So what basically this means is, again, what we're talking about before, essentially about win cons, right? Like it doesn't matter how bad that decision is. You've got to make a decision. The most important thing is to make a decision. And then we can work on that shit later, right? And I think what was happening with Van is that she was making bad decisions. She was playing with intention, but then those mistakes were demoralizing her confidence.
That's right.
Which would then increase compensation.
Yep.
And it was starting that toxic cycle.
Yeah, it's a cycle, yeah.
And the last point here was good intensity. Being able to ask myself more questions in the game like, can I absorb more pressure and be more impactful? How can I punish that enemy mistake? What can I do to absolutely ruin the enemy's chances of winning? Love that.
Great questions.
She said her own handwritten solo queue journal is awesome and working really well for her. I don't actually know how she uses it, so I'll have to talk to her about that. And she said, edit additional important points. You really need to eliminate shitty IRL problems. IRL stuff, we spoke about this, your IRL impacts your in-game massively, and each death can swing the game. Just one death can swing the game. And we push that all the time. She says, all of this is by far not perfect, but rather new realizations, and she's just on the climb still, grinding.
Great stuff.
So congratulations to Van for reaching plat. I mean, an amazing effort, despite all of the
adversity,
the
confidence, the fact that she's a female playing League of Legends.
Unbelievable. She's a massive inspiration, actually, to a lot of us. I've got something else, but Nathan, I don't want to take over the entire show here, Nathan.
All right. We talk about Champ Mastery all the time, okay?
Yep.
I think there's a narrative around this that we need to... I think we still need to break down some champ because people don't really still understand the value of Champion Mastery, okay? I feel like there's some extra layers that we need to go. This is just one that I had a conversation on my Discord with. The narrative that one trick in is bad because you'll learn one variation of the game or one style of the game, you create bad habits. That's it.
You want to discuss that?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your take?
Because you don't learn the game completely is the narrative.
Okay.
My take is that there is no other way. We've all done it. League's too complicated to be like, and this is coming from a gold player as well. Okay. This is a gold player that, has got the mindset, and it's a very logical thing, right? It's like, I want to learn jungle the correct way, or like, I want to have a complete view of the game. It's not possible to create a complete view of the game when you're going to be bouncing in gold and playing 10 different champions or 5 different champions or switching champions every meta. It's just not possible, guys. I'm sorry. As much as it sounds sexy, not going to happen. I use so many great examples. I love the Showmaker example in terms of, it was a Katarina one trick, right? I think he actually played Syndra beforehand or something like that. I read something about that.
I don't know actually about his story that much, right?
But
I know he played a lot of
He just
Katarina.
one-tricked and then one-tricked, right?
Right.
To get to high elo. I was an Udia one trick to get to high, and then so you get to like, let's say the high is a platinum diamond and then like master first. Then you are able to more quickly learn a complete view of the game. That's my approach.
Yeah. Let's break it down. I don't know. I don't know if I'm fully bought in on that. I'm close though.
Okay.
Look, I don't think you need to be a one trick to improve. I don't. But you do need to have a very small champ pool. So, okay, so let's say you're in low gold. I do think being a one trick when you're like silver and low gold, it does speed up the process of learning massively. Like if you can just play one champ and get very good at that one champion, your learning process is going to be smoother. You're going to be able to learn the fundamentals more effectively. Like you learn the game through the lens of that champion. It doesn't mean it's a beautiful holistic view of the game, but at least it gives you a baseline. It gives you a very, very solid baseline. But I think that, ideally, in a perfect world, in my opinion, you would have maybe a second champion there when you're in plat. I do think that. I think starting like having a little bit of versatility,
dabble in different styles and
doesn't have
winning
to be
ways
different
of winning.
style. No, just a different champion.
Different view of the game. Because even if
they're similar styles,
there's still a difference. It's still a
difference.
Yeah.
And I'm actually more of the mind of actually only playing one style. Like I'm actually big on the narrative that you should have a player identity. I say this all the time. I would rather you have, champs of a similar type because that's your strength. And then way later on down the line, maybe we can diversify, but sometimes you don't even need to diversify. Sometimes it's better just to all in on your style. But anyway, I do think you should go, being a one trick for an extended period of time is rocky. In a perfect world, right? I believe one trick temporarily at the start to get to a good foundational level, like learn the fundamental jungle or mid, then pick up a second champion in plat if you ideally, and then climb with those two champs, get to like D4, then add a third one in. And then, by D4, you've got a lot of champ mastery with the two champs, add in a third one, then you start to get a wider and wider view of the game. And that way you become a more holistic player, in my opinion. Now, that's not to say that's, you can definitely one trick, but I do think there's a level where like if you one trick too long, it's hard to go back. Like I think there's like a line of no return,
There probably is too much you could go over.
You can go overboard.
Yes.
And I think that's happened to you to a detriment where it's like you got to this extreme level with Udia, but then nothing was really close, but it created so many bad habits because you were not Nathan looking at the game, you were Udia looking at the game.
That's right.
Like you were Udia.
Yeah.
Like your view of the game was literally through Udia on every champion. Right? It's like, how do I tank as much damage on every champ I play?
That's right.
Whether it's Lee Sin or
I'm playing
or
like
Elise or whatever.
At least I'm like a tank. I'm like running in as a tank.
So yeah, I do think there's a line drawn though.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree with kind of, but not fully.
Yeah.
So your gold client, he needs to be careful. I mean, there's no harm though in one tricking through gold.
No, I don't think
like
so.
if you can get to plat 4 playing one champion, you're being great. I mean, gives you a very solid foundation. Because I feel as though as well, the game is so like the fundamentals is not easy to pick up. It's a lot of muscle memory that needs to be inbuilt. It's a lot of stuff. Like you talk about jungle all the time, being able to check where the enemy jungle starts and start panning your camera onto wave states. This is stuff that is just going to take time. You don't want to bombard that by learning another champ as well. It just ruins. It's not going to help you. Diversification of playstyle doesn't matter in that regard. Does that kind of answer your question?
One thing I'm concerned about is that, how you said, when you said it's like, you get to your gold and then you get to platinum, then you get to diamond, right? That doesn't take like a month, 2 months. That could take a whole season or 2 seasons, right?
Yeah.
Think about how many meta shifts and how many charms they'll change those type of champions out.
That is true as well. It's not going to be that clear.
It's not that simple.
But again, people shouldn't be picking up, especially in plat and D4, you don't pick up champs based off meta at all.
So you're saying just pick champs that are solidified, they're like mid lane champs.
No, so this is literally what I say. So someone says to me, goes, I'm not happy with my champ pool. I ask 2 questions. Give me a list of 10 champs that you love. Okay? Give me a list of 10 champs you love. It could be, give me the most ridiculous champs. I don't care. Just give me, in terms of order, what's number 1, the one you love the most, and go down. Then give me another list. Give me a list of champs that you're the most competent on. So give me a list of the champs you're the most competent on. Sometimes I'll even ask a third question. What are some champions that your current champion really struggles against? So what I try to do with all that information, so we've got a list here of champs he loves, champs that he's competent on, so I get to see what his strengths are as a player, and then champs that he really struggles with his current champ pool. What I try to find is I try to find a champion there that ticks all those boxes. One that he enjoys, might not be the one he loves the most, but one that he definitely enjoys. One that kind of makes sense with his underlying skill set, and one that complements his other champ in his pool. Because you don't want two identical champs, because then you're not going to know when to alternate. So that's what I look for. That has nothing to do with the meta. Nothing. I don't give a shit about what the meta is. That's how I pick champs for people. Because you need to love your champ. It has to have a place in your pool, and it's got to make sense with your underlying skill set.
The new meta champs would never make it onto the competent champ list, would it? Because
they might if they had played that champ in the past. Who knows? I mean,
that's true.
They could. It may or may not. It's just luck. Yeah. Whether or not it's a great meta champ. That's how I recommend most people to pick their champion. Those three lists, and then find the one that makes the most sense. That kind of has the most overlap with all three.
Sort of like one of those circle things.
Yeah.
What do they call it? I forgot what they call it.
Whatever that is. Yeah.
A Venn diagram.
Right. Yeah. Spot on. A Venn diagram. Three
so
circles.
Much at school.
So I would recommend trying that with your clients.
Okay.
If you can.
Yep.
It could be a good exercise.
It's a good exercise. The Venn diagram, the champion.
But I don't really do it as a Venn diagram. I just give them the list. But the Venn diagram.
The Venn diagram champion selection process.
I like it. It sounds very Reddit would love that.
They would. For a Reddit, we'll make a Reddit post on it and just post on Summer School.
Just give it a fancy title. I want to talk about past experiences shaping your view of the game. I mean, this actually kind of ties on to what you were talking about.
Beautifully.
So I got a client who was a long-term Kayle and Cogmore player. Kayle mid, Cogmore mid. A lot of similarities there. Basically, AP Cogmore essentially.
Scale, nothing.
Farm.
Do not leave your lane.
Give pressure, don't leave your lane. Yeah. Get your item spikes and pop off in mid-game into late game, right? And this person loved that style. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to play that style, you can play that style. Many people play like that, right? And he did this for quite a long time. And then this person started to play Orianna. I believe it was Orianna. And I was watching their Orianna play. And it was so interesting because, this person was playing and I think they're doing a good job. And I'm watching it. I'm like, this is like in my mind as I'm watching, I'm like, this is goddamn so defensive. I mean, you're just giving pressure. You're not contesting pressure when you should be contesting pressure. You could be shitting on this guy, but you're not. Like, there was this constantly trade after trade or window after window that was missed. And this is stuff that is completely invisible to this guy. He can't see that he's missing all these opportunities because his view of the game is so shaped by his past experiences playing Kayle and Cogmore that his brain doesn't think that way.
Yeah, it's like the neurons have been created in like a certain way. It's very different. He would have to like, it's like, I sort of view it as like,
we have to fake it to make it
as like a drug addiction or something. It just requires extreme willpower and like effort,
a lot of curiosity,
and a lot of
to
start
just details,
changing the view.
Yeah, and basically what I said was like, we got to really start from scratch in terms of just aggressive posturing. Like just learn how to step up aggressively in the lane and just posture aggressively and try and poke this guy with Q. Like getting out of your comfort zone because his default response to the point is where he's back clicking. Like
it's a muscle memory habit.
He's clicking back.
Because he's done it. Think about it. He's done thousands of games.
He's done thousands of games like this.
Back clicking like that.
Back clicking and giving pressure.
So enemy team walks in front of me, I walk backwards.
Yeah, and it's okay to give pressure. He doesn't, because in his mind, he's being rewarded for giving pressure and scaling to the next item.
That's how our brains work. Like, and I find this very difficult as well when I'm going to the information collection in terms of teaching farming junglers. Like I have Yannick, who's a Gwen jungle main, right? And again, he's been rewarded so much for not FKing and looking at lanes, collecting information because he can win games without it.
Yeah.
That it takes us a long time to. He knows that it's good, but it just that habit and that way of viewing just takes a long because until you literally win a game from collecting information like that, your brain actually won't make the connection.
Yeah, I always say this as well. All it takes is one really good game doing this. And you latch onto that one.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
like you've got that.
Building.
Well, it's like you can always refer back to that. You know what it felt like. It's like,
that's right.
Great. Now I know what that feels like. You have that one game where you're playing Ori and you're playing pressure-oriented game. Wow. That felt really good.
I don't honestly for those type of players. I think that it's not one game. They need that one game to start. The way that I view it, it's like you plant the seed,
right?
But you need to keep watering. You need more of those games to like really build that reward thing in the brain. That's my. There's no fucking science to that, guys. That's the way I think.
Yeah.
That's the way.
I get what you mean.
You know what I mean?
So I think that the people watching this, if they have come from a background of playing a specific champion that played a very particular way, and you're trying to get out of that right. That's why you don't really want to go down that.
You're playing Kale and then you're playing.
Well, this is interesting though, because this actually I sound like a giant. I'm contradicting myself because remember what I said before. I said it's good to play one style, and then we can swap later on. So this is where things get very tricky because it depends on the style that we're talking about here. So I mean, holy moly, this gets complicated. Okay,
I think the message should be based on your past experiences. Yep. You need to know that it's going to be even harder for you to learn a champion than compared to someone else because of your past experiences. Is that the message?
And I would say the more unique the way you play, the harder the transition is. Like if you're like a Vlad player, like you've got a very, very unique view of the game.
Your view of mana would be out the
same thing as a Katarina player. If you're a Katarina player trying to expand, or you're a Vlad player trying to expand, or whatever, like we're talking very niche champions. You're going to struggle big time. Like you're going to struggle big time to try to expand to other more traditional champions. So, that is why there is a benefit to playing more quote unquote holistic champions. But I still think that as long as you're not doing it for a long extended amount of time, you should be okay. Honestly, this is a giant contradiction. So
we're full of shit, we contradict each other.
But this is it. We're still trying to figure this out because on one hand, a lot of time though, what I would tell people when they go down that one rabbit hole and they all in on their strengths, I don't expect them to ever expand. A lot of the time, because they're not a pro player. They're not trying to go pro. They're not trying to play competitive a lot of the time. They're just people who enjoy this particular way of playing the game. In my mind, there's no way. Like I don't give them that advice thinking that they're going to change. Because most people don't. Most people who have a style, they usually stick to that style. They don't like an assassin player doesn't randomly want to play mages, or a mage player doesn't randomly want to play assassins. Most of the time, there are those exceptions that people want to. They as they get better at the game and they understand more, they want to have like a differing perspective on the game. And it is hard. It is hard.
I think definitely fine to tell them. And I think it's all good. Be like, because you said your intention is not for them to change. But I mean, I've done it myself, so I know that you can.
It's possible,
It's possible.
But the reason, Nathan, I don't recommend people to play multiple styles is that it's so fucking hard. Like for someone to play Rek'Sai and then play Karthus,
it's massive difference.
You got to be a very experienced player
that's right.
to be able to do that. Or to go from playing Fizz to playing Vlad. It's just a different game.
It is.
It's a very, very different game. And I don't recommend that because I struggle to do that. If I struggle to do that and I played the game for 11, 12 years, let alone what the hell is this poor guy going to do? So that's why even though it can dig you a little bit of a hole, I would rather have that burden of having to dig myself out of that hole than struggle in the first place, That's why I view it. Like there's disadvantages to both and advantages to both. But the disadvantages to the one of having one player identity is less. It's less than trying to expand from the get-go, in my opinion, because you might actually just give up. Most people who try to do the both styles, they just give up because they don't get results.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Well, that's why I said before in terms of, one trick and stuff like that, or like, when I say like there's no other way to do it to climb with it, it's just the fastest, most proven, beautiful method in terms of 1 to 2 champions.
Yep.
I always say this in Sol 2. When people say like my champ was like 5 champs, I said I've never seen anyone climb with 5 champions ever.
Yep.
That's just from my experience. I mean, I'm sure there's definitely some people who have done it, but I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen them, yeah.
And not consistently enough to ever tell someone to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. 100%. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about today?
I think that's about it, Curtis.
Wrap it up?
Yep.
Any tidbits, any final words?
Other than what I usually say, Curtis, keep on improving. There was one thing that, it did tie on actually to the topic of, actually we can quickly touch on this in terms of, it's sort of like an ego thing. This is the statement. I play better than my opponent So they shouldn't win the game and I deserve to win the game. That's the narrative.
I played better than my opponent.
Yep. So let's say you beat them in lane phase.
Yep.
Or let's say for junglers, we out-jungled them. Right?
Okay.
So like I've won the game. Like
Yep.
I've done my job.
So you're talking pre-early game. I did my job. I out-pressured this guy.
Yeah. And then what happens is then they start to check out. And
Yeah.
then again, it sort of ties into the you're the fed one, but we talk about the beginning of this podcast. That's
Right.
why I dabbled this in there talking about people think they can check out because they've
done their job.
done their job. They've beaten their opponent.
Yeah, I actually had that yesterday.
And the enemy team doesn't deserve to win because they
Yeah.
lost to me.
Yeah. I had that last night yesterday. Yesterday I was playing a game. I played Nautilus. I played really well. Like I completely dominated this guy in lane.
Gapped your support.
Yeah, I out pressured, I out roamed, I out skirmished, I did everything, and the game was over, right? And we just got slobby. I remember I didn't ping back on obvious shitty plays. I wasn't like spam pinging the Baron. Like I remember feeling, okay, this can easily go bad, but it's game over. The game's over. I did my job.
And
I basically,
this player.
well, I metaphorically took my hands off the keyboard, essentially. Like I wasn't fully intense anymore. I was super intense, thinking about always, okay, when do I need to group with my AD carry, make sure I can get farm? Like I'm always thinking, and I just let go. I just stopped. I stopped thinking like that. My brain kind of went into autopilot mode. And then what happened, funnily enough, I died. I gave like a decent shutdown. My jungler died, gave the Kindred a shutdown. Kindred got, I think, like 700 gold worth of shutdowns. Then people started getting complacent.
Yeah.
They started getting shutdowns, and they nearly got to our Nexus. I think they got one of our towers or even both our towers. It was a really, really close game. Turned into like a 47-minute game that should have been like a 25-minute win.
Yeah.
All because we got complacent.
Yeah.
And I feel as though those games, I think, and we all have them at times, but for me, it's just a wake up call. You have one of them.
It's a wake up call.
It wakes you up for the next few weeks. Like for me, I have them, and it shouldn't be like that. Brutally honest, it shouldn't have to be like that. That should be my standard, to have full intensity every game. But I'm a human, and it happens. It happens, and I have that wake up call. I'm like, okay, Curtis, it should never be like that, because I was so close to like losing my shit because of losing that game. Like I was pissed.
Yeah.
I remember feeling in that game. I had that really negative thought, which was, I'm going to lose this game. Like I thought that, and whenever you think like that, I can't afford to lose this game. That's when you play worse a lot of the time.
Because you're in the defensive
You're on the
mindset.
defense.
You're just
I can't
trying
make
not
mistakes.
to lose versus playing to win.
And then, I just turned it around, and then we just won. And it was just one of them. I'm like, okay,
there's probably some lucky circumstances.
Yeah,
that
it was
popped up.
all flip at that point. This was all flip. It was all execution. It was just all luck. But that's hopefully enough to wake me up for weeks, because that's just ridiculous. And no matter how well you play on the first 12, 15 minutes, especially nowadays with the way
the game's decided at the 20-minute, 25-minute mark.
Games are more about the mid games, the 15 to 20 minutes. That's where the games are decided nowadays.
But the early game is still incredibly important, because if you continually play perfect, you close out the game cleanly.
Yes.
That's the key thing.
Spot on.
Because people always then take it's like, Nathan, we should just review mid-game all the time because it's so important.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
But I have been actually, again, I'd say this year, this is the most I've reviewed mid-game. More than ever.
Yeah,
I go way deeper into reviews now.
But do you think that's because you were able to perfect the early game, lane phase? You're able to go to that next level? Could you have done it the other way around?
I'm talking with my clients.
Yeah, even with your clients. Could you have done it the other way around?
No, you can't do it the other way around. Yeah. I mean, if someone's dying to level 3 ganks
that's step one.
That's step one. Yeah. Yeah. But like before, I would kind of assume a lot of the time that I'm like, this is not that important. But now I like grouping and splitting. Like that's something I'm hard on. Like I did a review last thing here where this person went top and to catch a wave when their team was like making, like the Dyna was their wink on Dyna Jungle, and Dyna Jungle was pathing bot side. And I'm thinking, okay, you're playing, I think he was playing Vex, and you've got ult, you've got everything. What's more important here, catching this wave at top, or do you think just hovering your Dyna because your Dyna's your Fed member and she's probably going to make something happen? Because everyone was moving on bot side. I'm like, even though nothing bad happened there, like I view that as a huge risk, and you could have easily lost the game off that. Like Dyna could have fought, you could have given a shutdown, you weren't there, that could have been the game. So I overemphasize that. I say this is huge, but nothing happened, right? But I still
this could be huge.
This could be huge in another game. In an alternate reality, you're not at the right play at the right time.
I emphasize that stuff all the time.
But that's something I would have looked over in the past before. 100%. I would have said, mid game here, nothing bad. But no, I actually started to get specific. Why are you pathing here and catching the side waves when you could be just grouping? And especially nowadays with the games, how explosive they are in 15 to 20 minute mark, you need to be really on the ball when you're grouping and splitting, like more so than ever. Especially with a lot of the, especially in high reload games, with the way the meta is, using Aries and Talias and all these champs like have go buttons.
There's big go buttons. The engage.
Fog of War is so goddamn important.
I love the fog. I always play around fog.
Lovely.
All right, that's it for this podcast, everyone. As we always say, good work. Let's keep on improving, and we'll see you next time.